preface for this movie.
Yeah.
I know literally zero about it, except that it's directed by David Fincher and Michael Fassbender's in it. That's it. Like I think I was just looking at the screening room upcoming movies for like something maybe for Rachel and I to watch, and I saw The Killer was showing a bunch. I think last week, or maybe they posted on their Instagram or something, and it said like new movie by David Fincher, and I was like, what? So I looked, and I was like, perfect. Like I got to see that with Will. Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Like I had know nothing about it.
Okay.
Zero.
Yeah. Because
I did watch the trailer though, but beyond that,
it's weird because somebody pointed out it's a Netflix film, so like there's been like no marketing for it essentially at all.
Right.
Like there's the teaser trailer. The second trailer just came out yesterday, and it's very much like in the same style. Like there's two different trailers.
Okay, I saw a short one. I saw a quick one.
Yeah. The where he's laying out the mat and stuff like that. Like that one. That's where it begins.
I don't know if he was laying out the mat, but definitely he was sitting down a lot. And I think he said along the lines of like, if patience isn't your thing, this job isn't for you, or boredom or patience or something.
I do like, I saw an interview with David Fincher where he's like, I kind of want to do the anti-James Bond. Like, he's not stylish because realistically, if you're like a hitman or something, you want to blend in. But
you never want to be spotted or seen or known.
The extra non-plot stuff is just that it's based on a comic book, like a French comic book, or they'd say graphic novel to be cool. But let's be real, graphic novel implies that it has to be like dressed up in order to meet some ridiculous demand or something. It's not. It's a comic book.
For some arbitrary thing that doesn't have actual terms.
Yeah.
But then again, like a comic book, when I think of a comic book, I think of like, however many pages. Like
splash pages.
Yeah. But then when I think of like graphic novel, like, yes, I don't know if it's a true medium, but like when I think graphic novel, I think of like The Watchmen, how it's like a book.
Yeah, it's more serious, it's thicker, it's like... Yeah.
But really, it is like a comic book.
Yeah. Just a really long comic book. And I just kind of like the absence of pretension, but graphic novel also sounds really cool. But I remember on the OC, Adam Brody's character, the dad would refer to comic books, he's like, graphic novel, actually. And my comic book literature professor is like, there actually is no difference between a graphic novel and a comic book. They are the same. So just call it a comic book.
Yeah, so... get over it, call it a comic book.
So David Fincher was like asked he told people he was doing this, which is almost like in the vein of a B movie, like a hitman on the run kind of thing. And people had thought maybe after doing projects like Benjamin Button and Mank, it's like, oh, David Fincher's grown up, like he's moved on to more serious movies. And he's like, I will never get rid of my inner 12-year-old. I will never go on to like more serious movies. This is just what I like to do, and I'll always do it.
How could they say like it doesn't do serious movies? Panic Room was serious. Social Network was serious.
I wouldn't consider Panic Room serious. I'd consider that like a
B
movie.
A serious movie.
Well, it's a serious movie because its pedigree is Jodie Foster and Forrest Whitaker and say what are
the check boxes of a serious movie?
That it's not. It doesn't resort to like cheap thrills, threat of gun violence, and things, unrealistic things, and so it's just something that's very grounded.
Social Network was serious?
Yes, Social Network is a serious movie. Benjamin Button is a serious movie, although it has like a gimmick at the center.
I forgot that he did Benjamin Button.
Yeah, Mank is a serious movie, although it's like stylistically like goofy.
I think that's dumb to say like he's finally grown up and doing serious.
It is, and it comes back to the pretension of like, is this a comic book or is it a graphic novel? It's like he said, no matter what I do, I am always going to plan movies the same way. I don't make a movie differently based on the material. I always do it my way. And but people like to say like is this movie gonna be like The Game? Is it gonna be like Alien 3? Like, and it comes back to the whole Martin Scorsese argument of like cinema versus blah blah blah. Right. People like David Fincher just don't make that distinction.
I feel like
even though I would classify his work as cinema.
Yeah, I think the way that a director approaches a movie is like definitely valid, but I think it's kind of annoying in terms of like
people trying to cut down the middle.
Yeah, or like people are like trying to like get him to approach a movie a certain way, and I say that just because like if they like I would almost want to say that like every director should approach a movie that they enjoy or they're gonna get enjoyment out of, right? Because then that's how you get, I would think, the best pedigree. But like I feel like in the vein of like I'd like to see David Fincher do this genre because then it would be challenging. Yeah, just because like it's challenging doesn't mean it's gonna be good. You know what I mean? Like in a way, you want the director to always put their heart in it, whatever genre it is. Like, what if somebody were to say, like, oh, I'd really like to see David Fincher do a comedy? And if David Fincher was really going to enjoy making a comedy, who knows what we're going to get? But, like, he put passion and pride into it, right? Like,
this is supposed to be funny, actually, believe it or not.
Okay, not just, like...
But Gone Girl...
Dry contemporary laughs?
Well, I mean...
Gone Girl was good. I liked it a lot.
And that had a lot of laughs in it because it's so dark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this I would consider like that. Like his humor is like dark. So
yeah.
So I think it's interesting. I always wonder how a movie is going to be received. Like I think that maybe people think that this movie is going to be some sort of like pitch black dragon tattoo-esque kind of thing, and it's a lot more rollicking than that, maybe.
It's more what?
Rollicking, like a roller coaster ride.
I've never heard that before.
People would say like a rollicking good time. It's old-timey criticism stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited because I remember thinking, me and you saw Scorsese last week.
Yeah.
And we're going to see David Fincher this week.
I'm literally going to hold this movie up right next to The Flower Moon and say which one was better.
It's going to be The Killer. It's going to be, like, for me, I can tell you it's going to be The Killer because I just like this subject matter better.
Sure.
I like when the stakes are extremely clear.
Yeah.
And it
even if it's not entirely fair to, like, you can't hold those two up. They're totally different. Well, I enjoyed this one more than the other one.
Yeah, there's never any movie, like, I compared Barbie and Oppenheimer. They couldn't really be that much more different. They're, like, other sides of a coin. And I said, it's interesting, I said that Barbie was better, even though it's, I don't know, a bit more boring. But to me,
Barbie was more boring?
Yes.
Really?
Well, again, this is what I think about, because I remember Oppenheimer being boring for like the last entire hour. It's a boring movie. Yeah. But the excitement and electricity in the air of seeing Oppenheimer in the theater as it was happening versus Barbie. Now, Oppenheimer was a full packed house, and Barbie there was like 20 people in the theater.
Yeah, and you saw them both on opening weekend?
I saw Oppenheimer opening night, and then I saw Barbie like the next Wednesday or Tuesday in the afternoon.
So less than a week later.
Yeah. But I'll still compare them because I'm like, Barbie is made by bizarrely like equally good. I would say that the people who made Barbie are equally as good as Christopher Nolan. However, like it's less original, so it's therefore less of like a vision, and the vision is kind of what carries Oppenheimer. I find it reaches beyond the stars a lot and doesn't always like get what's in its grasp, what it's trying to do. But Barbie is like the opposite, where it's like, a movie that's out of the 90s that like we've kind of seen 1,000 times, just done extremely well.
Done well, yeah.
In a lighthearted way. And because of that, it's like if you do something that's squarely in your ballpark and you do it like pretty well, versus you reach for something, it's like how the professors would say to us, I would rather you be specifically wrong than vaguely right about something. And that's just kind of the argument against Barbie, which is vaguely right, and Oppenheimer, which is specifically wrong.
So he would rather something definitive on either side than somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I would. I am that way. And like, I won't watch Barbie again. I'll probably watch Oppenheimer again. And I recognize Barbie as a project. I thought it was more put together, like more complete of a narrative. Oppenheimer, I never really got behind the material. However, it's like Oppenheimer is more interesting. So, that's comparing apples and oranges, but I can totally say, yeah, this is better than that. Whereas other people that are like my film companions would say, oh, that's blasphemy. They're two completely different films. How dare you?
Oh my God. Get over yourself.
Yeah.
well, I enjoyed this one more, so it's better.
Yeah. Like, I was wondering, it's like, okay, Blackberry, is that, like, still my favorite movie of the year? And The Holdovers I put, which opens
Have you
today
seen
in
it?
a limited release. Yeah, I saw it at TIFF. It's a square, down the middle, feel-good, coming-of-age comedy set at Christmas. It's like a warm Yuletide log of a movie. And I enjoyed it. It's not super exciting.
That movie's been made before, hasn't it? Like, that idea.
It's in the style and tone of, like, Dead Poets Society from 1989. So
yes, okay, I was like that or School Ties. I was like, oh, we're right there with something else. Yeah.
By being a bit more lighthearted, like it's like that.
Society.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I liked it a lot. Yeah.
I thought it was solid, but it's one of those where I saw everything like Community, ripped it off before I got a chance to see the real thing. So the whole inspirational teacher comes in and changes everybody's minds in the way that they're thinking.
I just really like the way that Robin Williams talked about poetry. Like the one scene where he says, like engineering, math, and science, like these are all noble endeavors and that are necessary for life. But it was like, but poetry and love is why we live. And it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then like, he talks about like, just the importance of a varied vocabulary, right? And like words, you don't come home tired, you come home exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, cool. And he was just like, like poetry, like you don't just say poetry, you let poetry ooze and drip from your mouth like honey. And like just that scene, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my god,
this guy's onto something.
Yeah, I was like, this is sick. Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and bizarrely, or not bizarrely, Peter Weir's other movie, he did Dead Poets Society, and he also did The Truman Show. A movie which I've never seen actually all the way through. Have you?
Truman Show?
Yeah.
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah. And it's just like one of those, can you believe that at one point was an original idea, like completely written by a guy? And like, there was stuff about like the beginnings of reality TV and things to satirize, but
it was just before reality TV, right?
Yeah. So
because they consider the beginning of reality TV the Real World or something on MTV, right?
Yeah, and that was like around the 90s, like around that time. Yeah. So it's kind of fascinating to me because it's like when you say the Truman Show, people are like, oh, I feel like I'm living in the Truman Show, as if like that's a genre or a thing of itself.
To experience?
Yeah, when really it was just like an original idea at the time, but now it's like describes a whole, like we've seen it. It's inspired so much that it's hard to believe. It's like, this was just like in the 90s, people were coming out with these ideas every week. Yeah.
Huh. I don't know. I like the Truman Show. I do remember liking the one like montage part where they kind of like get all the like the nitty-gritty questions out of the way that like the audience would naturally think, because like he's been filmed like his entire life, right? And then like,
how does that work? Explain.
And then it was just kind of like, oh well, people didn't think that we could get past this thing and that thing and whatever, and then it just like shows the clips, and it was just like, moving on to geography, and like which like Truman really liked, and then it was just like, yep, the whole world's been discovered and there's nothing left to look at next, right? So like he wouldn't like get the idea of like exploring beyond the dome. Those are pretty funny.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, well, how do you make a show out of it 24/7? And then they're like, well, people like to put on Truman at night to fall asleep too. And it's just like him in front of the bathroom mirror.
It's familiar, like,
and it's this brilliant thing that M. Night Shyamalan messes with, where it's like, you never over-explain the premise, you know? It's like, it's like, tell me, okay, I get it, moving on.
Yeah.
And that's like
you can get lost in over-explaining the premise and you like expose the holes, right? Like, but it's like, no, it's not what it's about. It's not a rock-solid theory.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's a singular work. It was nominated for Best Picture. Ed Harris was nominated for Supporting Actor, Screenplay.
For playing God.
The voice of God, essentially. So he never won. So he's like, you can watch this funny thing, the Don LaFontaine movie trailer voice guide tribute, and when it gets to the point where they're naming all the actors, they name Ed Harris like 5 times. It's like, Ed Harris, an Academy Award nominee, Ed Harris. Because he's like been Academy Award nominee Ed Harris in a bunch of trailers. But this movie I'm excited for. It's in my genre. I haven't seen Michael Fassbender in a while. His last movie was X-Men Dark Phoenix in 2019, and he's been doing race car driving ever since.
David Fincher?
No, Michael Fassbender.
Oh.
He does the 24-hour Le Mans.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. He's done it twice.
Has he won?
No.
Who does he race with?
He races in his car by himself.
No,
I
mean,
don't
like,
know. There's like Formula One Drive to Survive has a whole thing on it. I don't know
okay.
who he
So
races
like,
for. He races for a company.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Porsche, Ferrari, like.
It's not one of the big ones, but it's one you know.
Okay.
But you'd have to see.
So this is his comeback from driving.
Yes, he shot it really in between driving seasons, basically.
Wow.
So they just caught him at the right time, and then he's also in a Taika Waititi movie, which didn't get great reviews. About Next Goal Wins. That came out at Toronto Film Festival. A guy who saw it that I was next to said he liked it, but most people didn't. They just kind of found it tired, uninspired, kind of comedy thing. But we haven't seen him since like 2019, and that's like the most interesting thing that Denzel Washington used to say was like, if you drink too much water, you'll drown. You want people to go, where is Denzel? What is he doing? When is his next film? We don't want him. You never see Denzel do TV, and you don't ever see him really do a movie more than once a year. You know, Jodie Foster was the same, where it's like, oh, Jodie Foster is in this. I haven't
seen her in seems like forever.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that, and I remember thinking that for Panic Room, because it was supposed to star Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman had injured herself on the set of Moulin Rouge. She re-injured herself. They're 2 weeks into filming, and she has to pull out. And then they have, within a week, Jodie Foster, who's like the head of the film festival jury for something, and she drops out of that because she desperately wants to work with David Fincher. She wanted to work with him on The Game. And it's like, okay, here's the entire script. You have a week to learn your lines and know this by heart and come up with a character. And Jodie Foster did that.
You have a week to do everything.
Yeah, and Jodie Foster did that, and she was pregnant at the time. So they had her like in a sweater for like a good portion of that movie. And
she was caught sleeping or whatever, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so it was to cover up her pregnancy, and they're like, we won't tell the studio, we'll just do that. And then like in the year it takes to make the film, she has the kid. And then the studio says, oh yeah, the one parts we don't like is where she's wearing a sweater. Get her back into like tank top shape, which is like what she was in. And we'll do that. And she had the kid, so she got back into tank top shape, and they finished the movie. But it was like a year ordeal where they filmed and planned all this stuff with Nicole Kidman. And David Fincher is so precise that they had the height. Nicole Kidman is 5'11", Jodie Foster is like 5'2". So all the camera angles were off by like a foot.
Jeez,
Yeah. Because Nicole Kidman is a tall, statuesque woman. Yeah. And Jodie Foster is like a short person. So that messed up the entire cinematography of the thing. They had to have Jodie Foster stand on a box. They called it the Nicole Kidman box. But it was like...
to pick up the difference.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be a simple movie, like very easy. And David Fincher overplanned, backed himself into a corner, and it was kind of a nightmare of a shoot.
But the camera angles, like if it's a difference of like a foot, like what does that matter? Like if they know what the measurements are...
Because all the cameras are already preset up, and he was filming all the security cam stuff live at the same time rather than separately. So he had that when she's running around, it misses. And David Fincher is very precise. He uses remote controlled cameras that are pre-timed, and he uses extreme close-ups more than anyone, and a lot of inserts. You'll see in this movie, I don't know, but you'll see close-ups, like it's not just somebody's head, it's their eye line. So the eye lines were off on every movie, because you look at a basic frame, even if it's a wide shot, Jodie Foster is at the bottom of the frame where Nicole Kidman would be straight in the middle. If you adjust that, then you have to change the production design, you have to change how everything looks, because it's already in camera, but you have to move the camera position. It changes everything. So, we'll see on this movie.
Okay.
Surprising message for a movie like that. Nobody's perfect, everybody's human.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about him giving mercy at the end by not killing them.
The way I see it is like an observation about the state of the world. Of like...
You think it's that deep?
Like he's not making judgment on it. Yeah. So David Fincher is somebody who he was asked about, how do you feel about changing cinema? Do you feel that you killed cinema? With starting out Netflix and that kind of thing. Rocky Horror, I presume? Yeah.
Rocky Horror Night.
Yeah. David Fincher is somebody who kind of changed the world in a way. He took a lot of money, was looking to get into TV, and then did House of Cards with Netflix. Netflix was the only kind of non-HBO in the game saying we want to do HBO money. And, what they've done is they've ironically upended the theatrical model, and he's taken a lot of money from Netflix. It's the most successful creative relationship he's had. Has he made mistakes in the meantime? Yeah, and then now you have theaters struggling because things go straight to streaming and the pandemic closed a lot of theaters. Is that on him? No. Exactly. So he's not passing judgment on that kind of situation or the state of the world. He's not saying kill the rich. He's just saying this is how it is, and he makes a lot of mistakes, and they don't kind of come up to get him. Why? Because everybody makes mistakes.
So everyone is just doing their best.
So who is he to judge? The guy who he interacted with at the end the most is the billionaire, and yet he was the most human.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Tilda Swinton, everyone else was like, "How dare you?" Ill will.
As expected. Yeah.
They greeted him with hostility, and he responded.
Yeah.
But the guy who essentially is the most responsible for it, with the flick of a pen, and doesn't even weigh on his conscience, the same as that guy. They're kind of the same because they're human. It's kind of oddly reassuring.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Yeah.
That is a good take, because it's funny because he's just these things happen, and it was I was just made an offer, so I didn't get nothing came on me.
Yeah.
I made sure the money was there, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it's you have no idea who I am. No.
Yeah.
I just made sure money was in the account, and I said okay. I didn't want to get in trouble, and I was like, oh wow.
And
okay,
so
that's a good point.
So did he grow a conscience? Or no?
Well, he one of his rules was that empathy is weakness.
And the guy showed no empathy, really, for the flick of a pen. He was he's I'm sorry, but this is how it is. I don't know. That's how I saw it.
Yeah. So I figured we could get a drink here.
Yeah, sure. How would you rate The Killer?
Better than Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And we gave The Killers of the Flower Moon a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10.
So this is what? An 8? 7.5 and 8.
It was solid, enjoyable. So I would say maybe a 7.
Yeah.
A 7. I mean, I'm not,
I'm not
gonna rave about it.
Yeah.
It was definitely enjoyable.
Yeah.
A solid, whatever the runtime was, beginning to end, solid, nice, tight little bow.
Yeah, it was
efficient. Just because, not only the shots, but also, it was efficient. I knew what was going to happen next. Chapter 1, this. Chapter 2, this.
Yeah.
And it was okay, this guy is getting revenge. And then it's just I just have to wait until he gets the farthest up the chain.
Yeah.
Which I could just foresee. I could just see.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was okay with that.
Yeah, so 7 out of 10 is our score.
Sure.